Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Project Infinite podcast, a podcast covering the ever-expanding and infinite multiverse of fandom, from movies, comics, TV shows, video games. We got you covered. I'm Rob. I'm here with Courtney as always. Courtney, what's going on, man?
I'm doing great. Ready to talk some Eternals. Ready to talk some other news, but mainly just want to go over this film. I mean, we have our thoughts on it. Some differing thoughts, but pretty much kind of overarching, kind of similar thoughts, and I just can't wait to talk. I just love the lore of this movie. That's what I really want to talk about. I know we're definitely going to give our review, and we're going to maybe rate it, but I think the best part about this movie for me is that it just expands the MCU so much, so that's what I really want to talk about today as well.
Yeah, and we're probably the only podcast that's not going to be talking about Spider-Man and the various images that surfaced.
What images are you talking about?
I'm not going to get into it because I don't want to ruin the experience for myself or other people. Also, apologies if I sound a little nasally. I'm dealing with allergies because we live in Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania can't decide what season it wants to be.
Yeah.
And it's really messing with me. Yeah. So if I'm a little nasally, a little sniffly, I apologize if that's messing with the audio. But hey, man, I'm here, and I'm here to record. So Pennsylvania weather be damned. But first, before we get into Eternals, we have some news up top.
Yep, so I want to start with Stranger Things because I've been waiting. So many people have been waiting for this. The best part about this is they're grown up now.
Uh-huh.
And I said that as soon as kind of the third season kind of took off and they were still in the middle school range and they weren't in high school yet. And I said, this is a long break. And then COVID happened and then we got an extended break. And I said, hey, COVID's horrible, sucks, really bad. But for Stranger Things, they're in high school now, and I think that was the best decision. We got a lot of storytelling done by having them in middle school and having these kids have to deal with these traumatizing events and kind of be practitioned to be the protectors of this small town in Indiana. And it was a really cool perspective. A lot of young kids could latch onto the show. A lot of older people can use that 80s nostalgia. And it was just a show for everybody, man. Yep. It was so broad, but now we're kind of getting into that other side of 80s nostalgia, which is the teen movie era. That was such a big part, thanks to John Hughes and a lot of other filmmakers. You have your Breakfast Club, 16 Candles, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and I can definitely see them pulling a lot of homages and a lot of just inspiration from that too. So that's my main reasoning for being excited about this season. Can't wait to see everybody back. I saw some promo images. We got that teaser. We got the 2 teaser trailers. So I think we're gearing up for something special.
Yeah, I hope so, because this is kind of, we talked about this, I don't know, probably like a month ago, when it comes to Stranger Things being like kind of like the old guard of Netflix,
yeah,
in a way, with the boom of Netflix creating their own content, creating their own movies, a plethora of TV shows. Stranger Things comes from an era where Netflix was only producing really a handful of in-house TV shows that were incredibly high quality. And I'm excited to see what it can kind of bring to kind of a new era. Because like you said, it's been so long since season 3.
Yeah, and now it's almost expected that Netflix produce high-level shows at every turn. It's expected that they're at the top of their game, even more so than cable television, which when season 1 came out, it was the complete opposite of that. It's cable television was dominant and Netflix was an experiment. Now it's in the era where Stranger Things comes out, it needs to be good. It needs to be the highest production value. It needs to be the highest build cast, and that's kind of the expectation, but I don't see them failing that anytime soon. You know, we always have our problems with narratives or story beats, this, that, the other thing. But at the end of the day, it's some of the best produced television that you can find. And there's a lot of passion that the Duffer Brothers also bring to the table, along with every single actor and everybody that's working on the show, too.
Yeah, I agree. It's not really news, but Supergirl is coming to an end.
Yeah.
Tonight is the series finale of Supergirl. And I don't know, I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts and our thoughts on kind of the legacy that this show leaves behind and that Melissa Benoist leaves behind in the role.
Right, and what's cool about Melissa Benoist is she immediately accepted that role, and I always felt her as Supergirl. From the first episode, I bought her as kind of this quirky girl that had been on Earth, unlike Kal-El had been there the whole time, but she had got there when she was older, too, and I bought that immediately. I know there was an episode in season 4, I want to say, it was that flashback episode with her and Alex and her kind of getting her power, and it was just such a well done episode, and that's kind of what I think about that show. Of just like, we talk about the nostalgia of Superman, but there's also the super family that goes along with it, and Supergirl really showed that. There were such strong beats in that show. I mean, season 3 is always one of my Arrowverse standouts. I just think the battle she used to have with Rain, and just kind of the concepts too. It dove into a lot of comic things that I didn't think that it can dive. Like, it even got down to like Kryptonian religion, which was really cool to see. So I really loved what that show did. Obviously, I don't love everything about that show. It definitely has its problems. It has its own CW problems. It has its, narrative problems in the later seasons. But all in all, not a bad show. A lot of cool characters came and went through. I mean, I definitely suffered from, like I said, the CW trope, and we're kind of seeing the new guard of CW, which is Superman and Stargirl, and then whatever comes afterwards. I kind of get that sense that the old CW, maybe outside of Legends, is coming to the end. Like, the Flash seems like it's on its last legs. Arrow's done. Supergirl's done. Black Lightning's done. So now we're going to get into this Stargirl era, this Superman era, and whatever shows they greenlight after that.
Yeah, and this show came from a very interesting place, right? So, for those of you who don't know, Season 1 was actually network TV. It was on CBS. And it showed in that first season.
Yeah, it did.
The effects are pretty spectacular. They did that cool crossover with The Flash in Season 1, which was great. And then for Season 2, they ported it over to the CW and made this iteration of Supergirl part of the greater Arrowverse. And like you, I thought Melissa Benoist is obviously the standout of this entire show. She brings such a light and levity to the character. And in a time where not too many female-led superhero shows.
Extremely important. Right.
Yeah. And, I mean, not to take away from her, but it also paved the way for Tyler Hoechlin.
Yeah, it did.
To be Superman.
It really did. It was the perfect backdoor pilot, almost the way you kind of wish Batwoman would have done, and which Batwoman didn't do, or still hasn't. It still could happen. I know they have some weird things with it being Hush instead of Bruce Wayne. I don't want to get into that. It's not complicated, but it's kind of convoluted. But yes, it did give us one of my favorite iterations of Superman I've ever seen, and it started one of the better superhero shows I think that's ever been made, especially from the first couple episodes of Superman. But like you said, we don't get that without Supergirl, and that's another episode I want to talk about. The first episode of Season 2 gave me that immediate Superman vibe, but it was definitely from him, but it was also just bouncing off of her too, just seeing this kind of Kryptonian family adopting these human cultures and these human ways, and just kind of bringing the light that we kind of need, and what Superman and Supergirl and the crest on their chest really, really means, and it means hope. Yeah,
and I don't know, maybe this isn't just me spitballing, but I think we'll see her again pop up, especially in Superman and Lois. I think she'll pop up.
I think we talked about that off the podcast. We were like, it would be cool if she was like the cool aunt that came by for a couple episodes, maybe a little small arc, and maybe even gives new perspective to Jordan, because he's going through this and his dad is very clear cut in his ways. But maybe it's also interesting that he had these powers when he was a kid. Like, he was a baby and he already had these powers. Jordan got them when he was a teenager, much like she did, because she also landed on Earth when she was right about a teenager. So it would be kind of cool that she gives him a different perspective on the whole situation as well.
Yeah, and I know she just loves the character and loves being kind of like an inspiration, especially to a female audience. I think they'll rope her back in for something. You know what I mean? I don't think this is the last that we'll see her, but good run for this show. I don't know how high the expectations were for it, but I think it exceeded them in a lot of places, and I'm glad that we had her. And
me too.
I'm glad that the character is going to continue, obviously, in the DC films with the Flash movie coming up. We're going to see a new take on Supergirl, so I'm excited to see that, and people are already familiar with the character, so yeah, I'm excited to see it.
What else we got?
Oh, man. This has been a long time coming. We got Fast and Furious news.
Oh, man. I knew you were going to do it. I thought we were going to skip it. But...
Nah, man. We actually have Fast and Furious news. So, for those of you who don't know, Vin Diesel and The Rock have been in a bit of a tiff.
Yeah, they have.
Over the last few years, but apparently the hatchet is being buried, at least on one side of this. We don't know where The Rock stands, but Vin Diesel has officially reached out to The Rock via Instagram and said, come on home, Dwayne. He said, we got to finish this.
Yeah, I don't really have many thoughts on this. I mean, it's just kind of clear cut and dry. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. These are the most A of A-list actors in Hollywood kind of beefing and taking their own prides. I mean, The Rock seems super focused on other things. I mean, he's got Black Adam, and like you said before on a couple past episodes, The Rock dives into every role he has full force, and maybe Hobbs is just behind him. You know what I mean? Like, maybe this is just his past era, and he doesn't want to come back to a franchise where, I mean, you already got John Cena in as well, too, so not a replacement, but I mean, in terms of star power, that kind of is your replacement to have. Yeah. So you don't really need The Rock, but I understand why you would want The Rock on any project you work on, too, so I don't got a lot to say about it. We'll see if it works out. Go see Fast and Furious, don't see Fast and Furious.
Yeah, they're trying to, like, Avengers Endgame this with the Fast and Furious.
You think they're using this as marketing, too? Like, probably. Maybe that he's already signed on, but they're trying to, draw this out to get people to see.
I can see that.
Right.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. I don't know. These movies are dumb. They're fun.
Yeah.
They just keep getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
With every
They went to space in the last movie.
Yeah, so, and apparently this last one's going to be in, like, 2 parts.
Oh, they are Avengers Endgaming it. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. So, Vin Diesel obviously has big ideas for what
does.
He wants the end of this franchise to be. And, I'm excited for it in a weird way.
We'll see.
I guess the last thing is a little bit of Star Wars news. So Patty Jenkins, most notable for directing the Wonder Woman films. One really good one and one not so good one.
Which one is which?
The first one's the really good one.
Just testing you, just making sure.
But she was to direct a Star Wars Rogue Squadron movie, and that has been shelved indefinitely. The I word, which you never want to hear.
Yeah, that kind of disappointing, kind of sad, honestly, because... Listen, Patty Jenkins really proved herself from that first Wonder Woman movie. Obviously, the second one didn't get received as well. Had a lot of issues in the second one. But I mean, that Star Wars universe, and again, for me personally, it all goes about who else you're getting on the film. A director has so much influence, but who are you getting to score the movie? Who are you getting to shoot the movie?
Who are you getting to write the movie?
Yeah, who are you getting to write? Like, all those things are super important as well, and I don't think people give that enough credit. So, we'll see what happens with this afterwards. Hopefully it gets greenlit again. I can definitely see, like, a Top Gun version of a Star Wars movie. That'd be
cool.
Insane.
We just talked, last week? Yeah. About wanting different stuff from Star Wars, and this was right up that alley.
Right.
Of something totally different that doesn't even have anything to do with Jedi.
Right.
You know, Top Gun with Star Wars was, exactly how you said it. So, yeah, I mean, it's never good when you hear indefinitely. Yeah. Because indefinitely usually means that it's probably in the can.
Yeah, I wonder if Disney's taking advantage of the success of The Mandalorian and revitalizing Luke Skywalker. I mean, I still wouldn't be surprised if they say, Sebastian Stan, you want to play Luke Skywalker, and we do your prime years as a Jedi with Grogu, kind of in this nexus of this Star Wars universe of between 6 and 7 where we're getting all these stories too.
Yeah, just kind of a bummer because I thought that was a pretty unique idea for a film. So, I don't know. I hope it still kind of comes to pass. But I guess I lied when I said the last thing. The last thing is Tom Holland has been doing a lot of theatrics and acrobatics regarding Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yeah,
but,
he has.
One thing he did say is that this movie is going to be the darkest, saddest, kind of most serious iteration that he's brought to Spider-Man so far. And I feel like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
For what's going on in this movie. Or what we think is going to go on in this movie anyway.
So I've been watching the Tobey Maguire films. So PSA to everybody, go watch them. They're great. I can get the sense of, like you said, what he's talking about. I kind of feel like it's almost as if he knows something. Well, he made the movie. He knows what's going on, but
he knows it.
Yeah, there's something coming. I think there's something like dark and sinister coming. Maybe it's the death of a major character, which has kind of been rumored this whole time too. Like, I kind of get that feeling that somebody's probably going to get killed off, and I wouldn't be surprised if it happened. And even just putting him through the ringer. I mean, he's going to fight a version of the Sinister Six. I mean, that's enough to make a grown superhero quake in his boots. But yeah, I can see it in this one. And even from the first trailer, like, it wasn't even the actual Doctor Strange bit, or it wasn't seeing Doc Ock and Green Goblin come back. It was in the first part where it's like the core of Peter Parker being this kid from New York that has to step up to be the protector of New York. Like, all these people, the first thing he thinks about is, are my friends going to be okay? Is my aunt going to be okay? I think that's where the brutal nature comes from, and I really enjoy that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think he also said something about we're seeing him kind of face villains that kind of already know what they're doing and are like lethally dangerous, and that's not something he's really encountered to this point.
Because Mysterio was trying to put on a facade for the whole world. It's just if you got in his way, he would kill you. And same thing with Vulture. Vulture was right in the name. He was just trying to scavenge stuff. Same thing. If you don't get in his way, you'll be fine. But Green Goblin was a murderer. He was a straight up murderer. And Doc Ock, after his connection to the arms got dislinked, like, same thing. He turned into a borderline psychopath that was stop at nothing to build the sun.
Yeah, and I mean, Electro, all these guys are incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, Electro might be the most unstable. I know that's funny saying the same sentence as Green Goblin, but Electro is right up there with the same amount of mental instability as Norman had, too.
Yeah, so I think he's right. I think we are going to be in for something a little different than we've gotten in the first two movies. I mean, the second one was a little melancholy, but that more dealt with Peter's personal kind of grieving of Tony Stark. Yeah. Whereas this is probably going to push him past his limits. Yeah. In a lot of ways. And I mean, hey, if the other characters who are rumored to show up, it's going to probably push them past their limits too. Right. You know what I mean? They're all...
Right. You're going to need the three of them.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about this, is we've seen this particular group of villains already push at least two of these Spider-Men into their limits. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I mean, Green Goblin and Doc Ock damn near killed Spider-Man in the first two Raimi movies. Mm-hmm. Electro pushed Spider-Man to his limits in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was Electro showed up. Yep. So... yeah, I mean, I'm obviously looking forward to it. Yeah. And I think it'd be good to get a little more nuance to this Tom Holland iteration.
Yeah, I think it desperately needs it, especially, you're probably going to get that in the first half. I'm not going to be upset if the second half of the movie is just straight action, just going Sinister Six, going after whatever Peter show up in this movie. But the first half, like you said, I think it needs a little bit of that dichotomy between, I think it just needs to present the core of what Peter Parker and Spider-Man are. And funny enough, me watching these Raimi films, that's exactly what they did. I always say the Raimi films were drama films that had Peter Parker. Yep. The Amazing Spider-Man movies were sci-fi films that had Peter Parker. And then these Tom Holland films are the new age superhero films that he needed to be on the Avengers level. So they all have different things that they can bring to the table. And then putting those three things together in this film, if the three of them show up, I think it's just going to make for the best film possible.
Yeah. And we're like a month out.
Yeah, we are. No second trailer. We have one weird poster, and we're a month out. Yeah. I've never seen anything like this before.
It's great. I'm loving it. I'm really loving it a lot. Yeah. So now we're gonna jump right into our main topic: Eternals.
Yes. Hot ticket item right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So much has been made of the kind of critical reaction to this movie. Yeah. Pretty bad.
Pretty bad?
Pretty bad critical reaction. Audience reaction has been more positive, I think.
What is it sitting at? Around an 81%, I believe, on Rotten Tomatoes?
It's 80. Yeah, 80% audience, 47% among critics. So
I just want to get this out of the way before we even go forward. We don't care about that Rotten Tomatoes score. We genuinely do not care. Yeah. We just say that for people that, use that, and it's kind of the baseline for going off. That's like the one thing that people look for if they're looking for a critic score. Obviously, Rotten Tomatoes is it's even on, when you Google a movie, the Rotten Tomatoes score pops up along with like IMDb and something else. But listen, you go watch this movie, you enjoy it. Enjoy it as a solo movie. Enjoy it as a piece of the MCU. Enjoy it as just a movie outside of superheroes, even though it does have them. Enjoy it as just a regular film. Don't enjoy it. Don't like it. But do what you want to do. Right. That's the most important thing. Don't look at that 40%, 47%. And same goes for a movie that has a 99%. If you don't like the movie, that's completely okay too. It's just like what you like. That's the main goal of this.
Yeah, it's an aggregate, and it's, a consensus. It's what a group of people have decided this movie is. There are outliers on both sides. Mm-hmm. I always think it's interesting when the critics and the audience is such a high variance, as it is in this case. It speaks to most likely the people reviewing it professionally are kind of out of touch with what the movie's trying to be. Mm-hmm. That's usually what I think of it.
And it's been a broad spectrum as well, because I've seen reviewers say this movie has way too much plot and there's too much going on, and then the next review I saw was there's not enough plot and it's too much standing around, and I said, which one is it? You know what I mean? Like, this one's weird in the way, which like I said last week, why I was a bit suspicious of the reviews, because there was reviews that countered the same exact point that somebody else was trying to make versus a movie like Thor: The Dark World. The reviews were almost similar, and I looked at them too. Like, they're pretty similar in all the reviews for Thor: The Dark World on why they don't like it. It's just weird that this was the movie. And then this brings me to my next point. It's expectation. This was one of the, I mean, it's happened before, but this is a big example of how expectation can either really enhance a movie or really kill the movie without looking at the film as just the film itself.
Yeah.
And people went in with some kind of preconceived notions, and that's why I say the Rotten Tomatoes thing is really becoming not an issue, but it's something that you have to look out for now, because people walk into the movie hearing negative things, so they're just, in their brain, they're looking for those negative things in the movie, instead of going in and, or like you said, the other side, people are looking for those negative things and they're just gonna like it because somebody said something poorly about it.
Yeah, and I mean, from the beginning, when this was announced, right down to the first trailer, it was very clear that this was going to be a pretty strong deviation from the quote-unquote Marvel formula, right? The first trailer didn't give a lot away.
No.
Didn't show even a lot of the characters.
No,
really.
it didn't.
It was a lot of sweeping landscapes, and it was, hey, we got an Academy Award-winning director
that's
to do this movie.
That's what I got from that first trailer. It was immediately to show, listen, this is the type of people that are working on our films now. I mean, that even goes down to shows like Loki and WandaVision. They're getting a lot of talented people that really work in kind of like the indie realm of Hollywood too, that are doing some of these projects, and we're getting them for our big budget movies, and we're going to show off our abilities as this big studio to not just do, pump out the same film every time, which we kind of got accustomed to. I said it on here before. There was an era of Marvel where it felt the same for every movie that we got. There was differences in the movie, but it definitely was a machine that they knew the formula to that was working.
Yeah. And then the other thing I just had was the box office. It's done okay. A little under what Shang-Chi did. It's at 71 million. I think Shang-Chi opened at 75 million. It's under Black Widow, but I don't think that's a huge deal. I know ticket sales are staying pretty steady. So kind of what we talked about with the Guardians game last week, word of mouth. Mm-hmm. People are... It's always interesting with like the second crop of audience members, right? So the first crop of audience members is like people like you and I, who are going to see this thing opening night no matter what, regardless of critical reception, anything. We're trapped in the MCU machine. So we see these things opening night. Then you have your more kind of casual moviegoers, right? That don't follow these movies as closely, but still enjoy them. So they're not going to see it opening night. So they wait to see kind of what the first wave of people say about it. And I think it speaks to the movie, which we're going to get into in a little bit, that it seems that the second wave of people, third wave of people are going to see it.
Yeah.
That just shows you that what we think of this movie, and that it's pretty good.
Yeah. And just before we hop into spoilers, just an actual review of the movie. I thought it was an enjoyable film, and I even said before, for me personally, and we kind of joked about this earlier, you're very character-driven. You're extremely character-driven, which I am too, but I kind of and I think that's just the writer in you and the filmmaker in me. It's just those different kinds of ideas. Obviously, character is still the most important thing that you should worry about, but immediately, you even told me when we were walking out of the movie, the characters won you over right away.
Yep. And
for me, it was the look of the film. It was the lore of the film. We were divulging into this grand world, and already inside of one of the grandest world that we've ever seen on film before. We got the layout and the backbone of it, and it was insane to see some of these images on screen. I mean, just seeing Arishem on screen, like that type of scale, and you also don't get that without Chloe Zhao. You know what I mean? Like, you need her to do something like that. So I'm so glad that we got her, and just kind of this world that we built around this structure that we already had. It was amazing to see. So really a solid film. I'm gonna get more into the narrative when we talk about spoilers, but for now, narrative was solid. I don't think it was bad, because I think people really made it out like it was obscenely bad and obscenely drawn out. I didn't get that. I mean, I kind of liked that feeling of the existentialism you were gaining from this film, and kind of these insights on things we'd never thought about in the MCU, and even some regular Hollywood movies won't even try to touch.
Yeah. Like you touched upon, like you mentioned, I loved the characters in this. I thought they're some of the most three-dimensional characters that we've gotten in the MCU, especially for origin films.
Yeah.
I told you earlier that as far as if you're just looking at the origin movies, these characters have the most depth to them out of probably any of them. The only one I can think of maybe that stacks up is Guardians of the Galaxy. But those characters are presented in a different way than these characters are. And it's funny saying that Guardians has a smaller cast, but it does. One of the things I was worried about with this was the character overload and having to introduce a new crop of 10 characters, right? Which is not easy to do in film. It's not even easy to do in a book.
No, it's not.
But I thought it was pulled off spectacularly. There's a couple that don't quite land for me. I think we'll get into that more in spoilers. But on the whole, as far as the characters that this movie pretty much revolves around, which I would say there's probably three. I'd say there's probably three quote-unquote protagonists. As far as they go, freaking phenomenal. Really, really phenomenal. And then down to like the more secondary characters, which there's probably like 3 or 4 kind of secondary protagonists, and then there's kind of the ones that don't get a whole lot of play that we'll probably talk about. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think it's a good entry to the MCU. I'm not even honestly sure how it's going to figure into the kind of grander MCU at large. I guess the post-credit scene will kind of lean into that a little bit.
I kind of like that ambiguity, though, of not knowing, because usually you can speculate to the end of the day, but I mean, just based off the ending and the post-credit scenes in here, you do get that sense of you know where it's going, but at the same time, you have no idea where this can lead, and I think that plays into that grandiose nature of a film like this. It's massive. It's allegorically massive. It's massive in the actual production, and it's massive in the world building itself too.
Yeah, and I think this helps, or I think it helps this movie in particular, that we haven't gotten that Avengers moment yet, right? We haven't gotten the Thanos reveal of where this next group of movies is going. Yeah,
we have an idea, but that's, again, playing into the expectation thing, because we think it's Jonathan Majors as Kang, but we don't...
But we don't know if the Eternals are going to factor into that. They might not. They might be... I think we talked about this in one of the earliest episodes that we did, how what the MCU I think is doing now is focusing on these two kind of deviating major kind of things, right? Yeah. There's like the cosmic side of things with like Kang, and then there's like the street level-ish side things that like Sam Wilson's dealing with. And I think like the street level characters, I don't think we're going to see like an Avengers Endgame style ending to this next group of movies. Like I don't think you're going to see Sam Wilson's led Avengers teaming up with the Eternals.
No.
I think they're all going to, I think we're truly in a cinematic universe now.
Yeah.
Where we might not ever see the Eternals cross over with the characters that we already know. They might be doing their own thing, and I think the post-credit scenes kind of lean towards that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But yeah, overall consensus, kind of our loose scale, I think this is another movie, much like Dune, that you probably have to see in theaters.
Yes.
To get the scale of.
Yeah. Especially in IMAX. I mean, there's a moment, without spoilers, in the film where Arishem kind of descends onto Earth. And
crazy.
It's one of the best short moments in any film of this scale, any kind of sci-fi / fandom film that I've seen. It's just looking at it just left me kind of like,
looks insane.
Yeah, left me like thoughtless and speechless. Like I didn't know what to think in the moment. And it's just those things, seeing those things come to life on screen. And then for me personally, I was reading some of the old Jack Kirby Eternals comics. I was reading a little bit of Neil Gaiman's run. It's these things where you never think it can get pulled off on screen, and then you finally see, and I thought the same thing for Dune. You don't think you can pull it off on screen, and then you get a filmmaker to do it, and you get them to, once passion is involved, and I said this on Dune too, you can tell Chloe Zhao has a lot of passion, and she couldn't let it go. And you feel it. You feel it in moments like that. It's like there's a lot of tension too in this film, and it's not only tension amongst the characters. There's tension of the weight of what's going on, and it's not even necessarily this grand scale of, you know, the world can be ending, because that's simple. That's easy to do. Anybody can say the world can be ending. It's just the implications for the rest of the universe. That tension I thought was really well done too. Yeah,
I agree. So I guess from this point on, we're just going to dive head on to spoiling this movie. Mm-hmm. So if you haven't seen it yet, feel free to check out now and go see Eternals.
Yes.
And then come back and revisit us for what is going to be our kind of more comprehensive thoughts. And I guess where I wanted to start is that top tier of kind of protagonists.
Okay. Sure.
So I would say the top tier protagonists of this movie are Richard Madden,
Yes.
Icarus, Gemma Chan as Cersei, and Angelina Jolie as Thena. I would say those are kind of the top tier, kind of who this movie, the heart and soul of this movie are those three characters.
Right. And it's interesting you said that, and you kind of ranked them in tiers. And what you said about all these characters getting their own backstories and getting fleshed out, the best decision this movie made in terms of that is grouping them together.
Yep.
Because if you would have tried to follow 10 characters, it would have been too much. So immediately they put Cersei, Sprite together, and Dane Whitman on top of that together.
We'll get to him.
Right. That's a big piece of the end of this movie that we'll get into.
Right.
You put, who else did we put together? We put Angelina Jolie, and we put Gilgamesh together. So we put Thena and Gilgamesh together. Another good decision. And I really love their relationship because it's not immediately just a romantic relationship. It's a big brother, little sister relationship. That's really what it is. It's a sibling relationship of I'll do anything to protect her, no matter what.
Yeah, and it's good pairing those two in particular because as far as combatants, they're the two most powerful Eternals. As far as like hand to hand.
Yeah, outside Icarus Icarus is like he's the top of the top tier in terms of power. Even Kingo makes the comment at the end of the movie, I want to help you guys, but it's Icarus. I don't know how I'm going to help.
Yeah. So immediately you feel that this movie is in good hands because of that framing, right?
Yeah.
So there's a conscious decision made to make this an Icarus and Cersei story, essentially, revolving around their past and present and future.
Right.
And then Athena also, but she's kind of dealing with like her own kind of side narrative.
Which I understand simply for the fact because it's Angelina Jolie. And that's why I think
she's great in this.
Oh, she's amazing. I know I've seen some complaints about her that she didn't do anything, that she was sidelined by this thing, but you're dealing with 10 characters. You can't just have the same thing for each 10 characters to deal with. So it's good that she had to deal with this, what do they call it? The
Mad something?
The Madwiri or something like that, I believe. And it was interesting. That's something that's also pulled from the comics too. So basically, Athena in this film, once we get into 1521, where we find the Eternals sort of break up, Athena's also dealing with, she's remembering past versions of herself. And it's interesting because we don't know the twist that we're going to get into. We don't know the twist yet. So the first thought is, was there past versions of her? Like, why is she living through different versions of herself and different versions of the past? She was talking about a planet called Century 6, which is pulled from the comics as well, too. But no, it's really well done. You could feel a lot of torture that she had to deal with in this role, too, of just knowing that if she's supposed to be the best hand-to-hand combatant that they have, and she can't fight. She can't do the one thing. She's the goddess of war. She can't do the one thing that she was touted to do. And you really feel it, especially getting into the third act and the end of the second act. You really feel it from her, and it's a really great performance. I love it. Yeah,
she's great in this. Just talking about the lead two, really, really good performances out of Richard Madden and Gemma Chan.
Yeah.
Who... Richard Madden, the only experience I have with him is through Game of Thrones, and he's okay as Robb Stark. He definitely exudes kind of what you would see as the kind of typical fantasy hero.
Sure.
But doesn't really have much more depth than that.
No.
And I also made the joke when we left the theater that as soon as I saw that this movie was Robb Stark falling in love with a woman, I knew that we were destined for really awful things.
Yeah. Yeah. And somehow that what's his name? Not Robb Stark. Somehow Jon Snow would make it out of this.
Yeah. Let's talk about Kit Harington for a second. Because he's in this movie for about a second.
You want me to talk a little comic background?
Yeah.
Sure. So you guys saw Dane Whitman in this film. So Dane Whitman's with Cersei as he is in the comics. So Dane Whitman, as he says in the film, he's got a complicated history and lineage. So he is what they call the Black Knight. And from the post-credit scene, which we're going to dive into, because these two specifically need to be dove into, unlike past ones.
Yes.
He's going to turn into the Black Knight. So he's sort of this medieval kind of sword-wielding, almost... He's really powerful. He becomes... It's not really immortality. It's just he stops aging when he becomes the Black Knight. And it's just this big... Not big scale Avenger because him and Cersei both joined the Avengers at some point, but I believe his descendant, like the original Black Knight, I forget what his name is, but Merlin made the Black Knight sword because it was supposed to be the counter to Excalibur, and we do see Excalibur in this film, and it's also joked that Arthur loved Thena at some point by Sprite, and I love how they kind of present, because I have my issues with Sprite, which we'll get into, but I kind of like how Sprite was spreading all these like stories about each one of them, like Gilgamesh, Thena, Icarus. Like the Icarus is the main one because she even says that Icarus, Sprite told that story in whatever era they were in, that like the story of Icarus flying too close to the sun, which pays off in the end. Which it's neither good nor bad. I kind of knew that was where that was going at some point. Yeah, you kind of feel it. But getting back to, the characterizations of Cersei and Richard, Black Knight. Sorry, Black Knight. That's what I meant. It's the history that you can feel from him. And then she even says, you need to make peace with your uncle. Like right away, when they find out that the world is ending, like you need to make peace with your uncle. And perfect choice to get, what's his name? Kit Harington. Perfect choice for somebody like that because he can play both. He was very endearing and very nice and like a great boyfriend. But now that they set that up, it's a great arc that he's going to have because what the Ebony Blade does to you is it starts to eat at your soul and eat at your mind. And it starts to bring out the worst version of you the more you use it. And just based off the ending of the movie, he's going to have to use it. He's definitely going to have to use it. So it was a great way to introduce him. They kind of, I had this in my head, they introduced him like a character, I'm going to remember, but just having them be in the movie, not their character yet, just having them be in the movie and them evolving into who they're really going to be. And they did a really good job at that too. So, loved him, loved his relationship with Cersei, loved the dichotomy between him and Icarus because obviously Robb Stark and Jon Snow, they even have their face off at some point in this movie too.
Yeah, so if you're expecting, because he's Kit Harington, to see him a bunch in this movie, he's not. Yeah. He's in it for, like, the first 10 minutes, and then he's in it, like, the last 10 minutes.
He gets a FaceTime call in the middle.
And he gets a FaceTime call in the middle.
True.
But, yeah, so kind of dropping down to that secondary tier that I was talking about.
Did we talk about Richard Madden before?
Oh, yeah, we can talk about Icarus.
Yeah. Because he probably demands the most to be talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he is essentially the Superman analog, right?
Yeah, he is.
He's got the laser beam eyes, he can fly, he's nigh indestructible.
Yeah. He was labeled Superman in the movie itself.
Yeah. But really, really good performance. I go back to the depth thing. He falls in love with Cersei probably immediately upon their descension to Earth in the very way beginning. Mm-hmm. And then he, when the Eternals split off from each other, he vanishes, essentially. Kind of, and we don't really know why. We do know why later. Yeah. We find out why. And then he reappears. Presumably just kind of watching out for Cersei from a distance. Yeah. As the impression that you get. And he's presented as kind of the second, like the first lieutenant of this group. We'll talk a little bit about the leader of the Eternals probably in a second. Sure. But he's really in charge. Yeah. At the end of the day.
He's physically in charge. He's like Captain America. If Iron Man's really in charge, he's Captain America and he's vocally in charge.
Yeah, he's the guy that you send.
Yeah.
Right. when you need your problem solved. Yeah. He's the one you send. Yeah. He's the one who cleans up the messes at the end. But, yeah, really compelling. We're in spoilers now, so it's not really a spoiler to say. Really good turn.
Yeah, he does.
By him.
So, Icarus ends up being sort of the main villain, but is he wrong is the question.
Right. So, this is where I can see people not liking this movie. It's a problem that, is kind of lauded in film and storytelling in general is there really a villain in this movie? The answer is,
But then I personally kind of like that because if you're just looking at life, and that's why this is where Chloe Zhao comes to play in the kind of films that she's made. She makes these like realism type of stories. I mean, Nomadland's the perfect example of that. It's just a woman existing, walking across the plains in the Midwest. You know what I mean? So a film like this, it's kind of the same concept that Interstellar had, where there's not a bad person. It's just nature being nature. That's what it really is. Like, the Celestials are just a piece of nature. They are the gods of nature, but, like, they are just a piece of it. So is it their fault that they're doing what they were designed to do? even Kingo says at the end when the Icarus turns and he starts, helping kill Eternals. I mean, we're in spoilers, like you said, he kills Ajax. He kills the leader of the Eternals because she makes the turn after she realized that humans are worth saving. That's the real theme of this movie. Are humans worth saving? Yeah. So after he makes that turn, it's the nature of it. Kingo, like I said, Kingo says, I'm not going to kill anybody. I can't kill my family. I've evolved with you guys mentally, and I've grown up, mentally, because obviously they can't physically grow up, but I've mentally grown up with you guys.
He does the Batman Begins. Right. I don't have to kill you. I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you.
Right. But really, Kingo says, hey, I'm not going to deny worlds being born because we're going to save one world. I can't do that. That was our mission. And Icarus even tells Phastos, after Brian Tyree Henry gives a really good line about being himself, and we'll get into that when we talk about more kind of representation in this film. But after it, he simply responds to him after Phastos says, I'm unapologetically myself, and I'm glad of who I became. Icarus says, you're here to serve Arishem. This was our purpose. That's it. That we're creating trillions of lives by sacrificing billions. That's it. It's just a cosmic scale we need to keep balance of.
Right. So that's the kind of whole plot of this movie summed up, is that Arishem, the Celestial, created the Eternals and the Deviants, we find out, to basically build up the world population of any given world where a new Celestial is going to be born. And spoiler alert, Earth being the epicenter of literally everything in this universe.
We got Hunger Games. The Earth got Hunger Games. We got Primrose Everdeen, and we got our name drawn, and then they threw a celestial egg in the Earth.
Yeah, so Arishem puppet masters the Eternals and the Deviants against each other as a means of building up the population to a point where the Celestial can be born. Kaboom, the planet's destroyed, the Celestial's born, insofar to create a whole new galaxy.
Suns, he creates the sun so that there can be more planets in the solar system that they're creating. So, but also that goes into the end of the film when we talk about, because I want to save the spoilers for Inside the Spoiler for the first post-credit scene, because that's a huge reveal. But you get the sense that even Nowhere being in Guardians of the Galaxy, is every Celestial like this? That's one of the questions I took. Is every Celestial like this? Because somebody had to kill whatever Celestial Nowhere is, or Nowhere was. Somebody had to kill them, so I wonder if there was a Celestial War before that. I wonder if that brings us Galactus at some point.
Right. So it goes back to my saying that there's not really a villain. Arishem kind of is the villain.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he's essentially God, but God is not flawless.
Right.
He's omnipotent and he sees all, he knows all, but he's basically constructing the universe based on his own design.
And if we're going off comics, you want to talk about food chain, like the Celestials right now, and I don't know if the movies will dive into this. I mean, even to get off track a bit, even to get into a character like Kang's nature of being at the end of time already gives him an advantage over the Celestials in that sense too. But to get back on track, the Celestials themselves, if we look at comics, there's a food chain, and there's beings that are, I know it's crazy to say, but like far more powerful than the Celestials. I mean, you get into the map makers, you get into the Beyonders, like there are characters that made the Celestials themselves. Right. So, but as of right now in the MCU, they are the gods of the MCU. They were there even before the Infinity Stones. The building blocks of life were there. So. Right.
So that's kind of where it comes back to. And, Icarus isn't wrong. So he's not... Arishem, like I called him earlier, he's the puppet master. Yeah. Icarus is following his design.
Right, and that's the Thanos analog kind of in itself, of the, not really Icarus and Thanos, like, they're persons, but it's more of, like, the idea of, like, can I sacrifice these people? Like, sure I can, but I'm gonna do it by any means necessary.
And, the battle lines are drawn in a really, corresponding to the characters, a really perfect way. Yeah. Icarus never develops any affinity for humans.
No, he doesn't. The only thing he develops is love for Gemma Chan Cersei, and she loves humans, so he was just naturally going to love or attempt to love the thing that she did.
Yeah, and that's the conceit of this, is the battle lines are drawn in so far as Icarus, who really never developed affinity for humanity, so why would he fight to protect it?
Right, and then also, funny enough that you said that, Kingo is kind of self-absorbed. I know,
Exactly.
And it's funny. I know he said the line, but that's one thing I kind of disagreed with. I know he said the line like, "I love humans," but to what capacity? Does he love humans as somebody that
he loves humans to be worshipped?
Right, exactly. And that plays into the God trope of them, of understanding we were these immortal beings that were sent here to, protect and help humanity evolve and progress. So obviously some of them are going to feel the godhood and use it to their advantage, and he does. Yeah. It's also funny how they present it. So Nikhil Nanjiani,
Kamil Nanjiani.
Yeah, I definitely butchered his name, but he does a great job as Kingo. One thing that's lackluster about him is his power itself is kind of boring. It's basically just finger guns. That's all it is. But his character is interesting.
He's kind of on that second tier.
Yeah, he is. He's in the second tier. But I think it's because you got him as your actor. That's why he doesn't divulge even into the third tier. That's why he stays in the second tier.
Yeah, so he's kind of on the... I would say the second tier is probably him, probably Sprite.
Yeah.
Probably Druig.
And no, I would personally, I know they needed Druig to do what we'll get into when we get into the third act, why they got Druig specifically, but I would even put Druig in the third tier. I would probably put Phastos in the second tier.
Okay.
Of how important he
right.
was in the...
You're right.
And the representation he brought to the MCU for the first time, too.
Yep. No, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Phastos is... So let's talk about these kind of second-tier characters a little bit. We touched upon Kingo a little bit. Good performance, as we said. Like we said, he ends up, I guess, not necessarily siding with Icarus, but... He
succumbs to his nature, and I actually really love that.
And that's what I'm talking about when I talk about these characters have depth.
Yeah.
It's not just Icarus turns and then his crew fights Cersei's crew.
Right.
It's... really just Icarus, and then Sprite has her own reasons for wanting to align with Icarus.
We'll talk about that in a second. I want to leave that for a second.
Yeah. Kingo, again, doesn't really align with Icarus, but doesn't align with the other Eternals.
Yeah.
Cersei has her own reasons for wanting to do what she's doing. Mm-hmm. I feel like Phastos and Cersei's kind of...
Yeah, you talk about spectrums, like Icarus and Kingo are on one, but it's almost like strongly agree, neutral... disagree, strongly disagree. That's kind of... So, Cersei's on the strongly agree with Ajax, and Icarus is on the strongly disagree. Kingo's on the disagree. Phastos is on the agree. Because even Phastos even said himself, and let's just talk about him now that we're here, loved Brian Tyree Henry, and I'm kind of upset they didn't use him more in the movie. Because he really was he was the last one they went to go find. He was the... Because
he's the one with the most complicated stance on this.
Yeah, he does.
Because for those of you who didn't kind of catch wind of what his kind of role was. His role was literally providing humans with the technology they needed to thrive. Mm-hmm. And in so doing, he ends up giving them the weapon of war, the atomic bomb.
Yeah, he was Oppenheimer in this movie.
Right.
Yeah. And I think they even said in an interview that was his main inspiration, was being Oppenheimer. Even for the Celestials, he was this being that could create anything. And they had, since it's funny, they probably could have, that was honestly a giveaway of their lineage, and we'll get into that in a second, so this is the big thing. These Eternals are synthetic beings. So that's really, they're androids. That's one of the biggest changes from the comics. I don't even really want to get into why I think they did that, but it happened. Cool. They're androids. I don't love it, to be honest.
What I said to you, a little bit of the humanity.
Yeah, that's where, because I know you really like these characters. That's why some of them fall a little short, because it's not even short in their own arcs that they have. It's short for the outcomes and the resolutions to their arcs, because so some of them die, and we'll get into who dies. Kind of feel short because now I don't know if they can just bring them back. That's my issue with that, because even in WandaVision, Vision's dead. They have no way of fixing him outside of altering reality or getting a different reality version. That's why I really love that, because it adds that weight to Wanda's shoulders of this.
Yeah, and that's kind of the conceit behind the Athena character also. So what happens when these new Celestials are born is that the Eternals are essentially, their memories are wiped, right? And they're reborn, essentially, because they're obliterated along with the Earth.
So they die with the planet too.
With the planet,
right?
Yeah. And then snap, they're remade and start the cycle over again. But the reason why Athena is suffering from what she's suffering from is she's getting the memories of all of these previous instances, and she doesn't know what it is until she knows what it is.
Yeah.
And that's brings me back to the characters' motivations for why they're on the side that they're on. That's why she's on Cersei's side.
Right.
Is because she's this whole thing, like, messed me up.
Yeah.
Like, I'm messed up because of this screwed up design that God essentially made us for.
But it's imperfect. What they're doing, that's the other side of the argument. As much as I'm not on, obviously I'm not on the side of Icarus, but I understand because a big inspiration for this movie, I know she said, was Interstellar. And there's three pieces to this. Number one is the Rotten Tomatoes score, because Interstellar is also sitting at a 71% on Rotten Tomatoes, and obviously you need to have your own opinions, but in my opinion, there's no way a film like that should be sitting anywhere near the 60s or 70s. That's a 90+% film. So that's one. Number two is actually in the story itself. It's the argument that Michael Caine gave them. They set them out on this mission not knowing what they were. They were told one thing, but obviously, because you can't tell people what they're going to do, or they're just not going to do it. If they have any...
What bears in this movie.
Right. If they have sentience, they're not going to do what they talked... They're not going to do what they were designed to do, because they're going to rebel, and that's what happens. Once they find out, and some of them are loyal to the original making, which we get with Icarus, and it's interesting. I really love that.
Me too.
And that's where I think the core of this film is held, in that question. It's the greater good question. Can we sacrifice?
It's the philosophical, it's the trolley thing, right?
Yeah.
It's, do you pull the trolley,
right.
Do you pull the lever to save X lives, knowing you're going to sacrifice X other lives?
Right. Less lives, but...
who gets to decide, essentially, who decides who gets to be God?
Yeah. Is it God himself? Is it the people? Who decides? So
yeah, and that's kind of Cersei's argument to Icarus is like, no, we have to do this, but Cersei's like, they don't get a choice.
Yeah.
Why don't they get to choose?
Right.
Why are we deciding for them? And that's really the core of this film that probably tripped a lot of people up.
Yeah, I think so too, because it's one of the most complicated things you have to think about as the plot's evolving, and there's a lot of exposition too, so now your brain's juggling both these things. And I understand some people go to the movies just to watch straight action for a couple hours, get some heart out of these characters, and that's it. And that's what I like that more, of having to juggle these really big and broad thoughts in of itself versus, just going there and having a good time, which you definitely can have, but I think we need more balance of both, and this is the balance. Loki was the balance. WandaVision was the balance. You kind of see how all these Phase 4 properties are now bringing in these broader ideas. I mean, even Falcon and the Winter Soldier was asking some pretty broad questions. It asked about jurisdiction. It asked about, can we surpass these mantles to other people that don't think they deserve it? Should people that look one way not deserve to be propped up and, or what's the word I'm looking for? To kind of be, boasted as these new age heroes. Should it be the way it's always been? So, very interesting.
Yeah, and then the last character kind of on the second tier is Sprite. I put her on the second tier because a lot of the movie does revolve around her, and she's around Icarus and Cersei a lot, but this was one of kind of the shortcomings I thought walking out, was that character didn't come across to me quite as compelling as the movie told me she was. Yeah,
because from the promotions, it was Sprite is super important, and same thing from the comic. I mean, Sprite gets, in the comic, in Neil Gaiman's run, Sprite's like a major course for why they are where they are, and Sprite kind of takes Kingo's role in the comic in Neil Gaiman's run of, I'm pretty sure it's a boy in the comic, or not pretty sure I am, that he's the movie star. He used his youth to become famous this whole way. And it's interesting. I'm going to get into her and Makari specifically, the two of them, because they get the most interesting things, and it's like a philosophical thing that they get to kind of teeter with. But yeah, I can definitely feel the shortcomings. You know what my main issue with it is? It's that she's always presented as a kid versus, like, it never feels like she's a woman in a kid's body. That's my biggest issue. Because her just being a kid, like, and I understand, like, never getting to grow up, but it kind of just comes off, kind of annoying of, like, you're a kid, like, you don't really need to feel these things. And I understand where they were going, but like I said, if it was said, like, she's a woman that's trapped inside of a kid's body, that would have evolved it a little bit more.
She asked the question very briefly about why all of you are the way you are and I'm the way I am. And I thought that was pretty compelling, but by then it was too little too late for me.
Yeah, it was.
And how we mentioned that kind of everyone had their own reasons for being on the side that they're on. Her reason seemingly is just because she likes Icarus.
Yeah. And it's such like a teen thing to do, you know what I mean? And maybe we're being too harsh on it, but at the end of the day, I really think it is. It's just coming off as too little too late. It wasn't earned. Nothing felt earned about her joining Icarus. Because from the perspective of the whole other side, Icarus's turn felt earned, but her turn just felt
And the
forced.
other side, everyone's kind of reasons for being on the side that they're on. Even Kingo's kind of quasi-neutrality felt earned.
Yeah, it did.
Sprite's whole reason, I think, what is it? Who says it?
It's Kingo. Kingo's the one,
Who literally says, what, you're surprised that she went with him? She's been in love with him for as long as we've been around. Right. And I'm just like, that's your reason?
Yeah, and
like,
it doesn't also help that it's a child and an adult. Like, that also is really tough to look at.
Yeah.
So I didn't love that. But now that we're getting into the last...
like the third tier.
Yeah, the third tier. So we're dealing with the 4 characters, right?
Druig, Makari, Gilgamesh, and Ajax.
Yes. I would probably... Yeah, the only reason why Ajax in the third tier is because she's the Eternal that's in the movie the least, because she died, so she's killed. She's the leader.
Yeah, it feels weird putting the leader of the Eternals in the bottom tier, but like you said, Salma Hayek is good.
Yeah, she's good.
She's the North Star.
Yeah, she is.
She's the leader of this group.
She's their mother.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think she's good in that role. It's just the character doesn't do a whole lot.
Yeah, but I can forgive that because it needed to serve the plot versus like...
Me too.
Sprite didn't feel earned to have her arc by the end of the movie. So Ajax, cool. She's the Prime Eternal. So getting into back to like more lore side versus review side. So she's the Prime Eternal. She's the one that can communicate with Irisham, the judge. And the sequence where she first does it is so phenomenal. Cool. It's amazing because you see the shot in the trailer, but until you see, even you saw it in trailers when you went to go see past other movies, but until you see it in the context of the entire movie, can you understand the scope of it? It's wild. It's amazing to look at. It's just, she's literally like a fraction of a piece of his finger versus he's, the size of a solar system. Like, he's massive.
Scale is absurd. Yeah. It's so cool.
It's insane to see on screen, and you kind of get the feeling that she's not on board with what, even from the beginning, that she's kind of weary of what they're doing, because she's not necessarily, she's kind of on the Kingo side. That's where she's trying to divulge into, because she kind of goes from Icarus to Kingo to kind of Druig area. No, Druig's actually pretty radically on the side of Cersei, but he has his own reason.
Maybe more so.
Yeah, but because he has his own reason, which we'll get into, because he had a pretty interesting character. But yeah, and then she evolves into getting where Cersei is, of like, she really loves him. And it's funny, I kind of like the way they did it, because Ajax's whole reasoning is the snap was the reasoning for it. Because once the snap happened, she finally told herself, these people can become these heroes, these Avengers that can lead this world into this prosperous era.
They can save it in ways that we can't.
Yeah, because they can intervene. Like, because I guess when they were going to these planets, it was never about that. They probably didn't know superheroes were going to be a thing. They just probably thought they were just making eggs, or just making...
Because they're just there to destroy the deviants.
Yeah.
That's it.
Mm-hmm. They're to correct the celestial mistake. Right, mistake, yeah.
Quote unquote.
Right.
Even though the whole thing was on purpose.
Right. But yeah, Ajax is really good, and like I said, so that Thanos reveal, so once the snap happened, because we needed to get to a point, so let's say roughly 7 billion, you knock that down to 3.5 billion, and the Celestial can't be born, and then she saw.
Messed it up, Thanos.
Yeah, you did. And we'll get into that when we get into the first post-credit scene, because I got some thoughts on that. I don't think Thanos is, or the other character that we're going to talk about, I don't think they're androids. I think they're real, like, and it's funny, I know they bleed and stuff, but even when Iron Man punches him in Infinity War and all that, like, I think that's a real being.
Yeah. We'll
get into that a little bit more, but yeah, Ajax, good. I like Salma Hayek. She signed on for multiple films.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Right?
So, and again, that goes into one of my bigger negatives on the movie, was that kind of takes away from the weight of any of their deaths, because they can not easily, but they potentially could just come back.
Yeah. So another character that we could talk about a little bit briefly, who's also on this tier, is Gilgamesh.
Yes. The papa of the group.
Oh, yeah.
I love Gilgamesh. He was awesome.
Big, strong guy.
Yeah, big, strong guy.
Big punch.
Yeah.
Big punches.
Very paternal. Mm-hmm. He felt a lot like he felt a lot like why am Josh Brolin in Dune. That's who he felt like to me.
Sure.
As if he was to Paul, that he was to Thena. They were very, paternal figures that were always there to protect them no matter what. And it was a really beautiful non love interest relationship. It was so refreshing because that's what everybody immediately goes to. And I just love that was kind of their relationship and how he was just all about protecting her. And he even said Ajak offers to wipe Thena's mind, but Thena also and that gets into another theme, which is it's the Eternals and the Eternals. It's like it's the immortal complex of. It's Wolverine's whole thing. What's my life to be personified by if I'm just going to outlive everybody I know? Because life's personified by...
Cersei about Dane.
Yeah, life's personified...
Like, he's just going to get old and die,
right?
And
so be with him.
Forever,
yeah. And it's like, life is personified by people. As much as we would like to deny it, that's how it is. It's the relationships we build with people, and that's really the beauty of that arc is... The two of them are there for each other no matter what. No matter how crazy Thena gets or how close he'll come to killing him, he understands this is not her fault. So Thena has that, and Gilgamesh says, I'll protect her. Don't wipe her mind. I'll just make sure I can bring her back to Earth if I can.
And he does.
Yeah, he does.
Over and over again up until his demise.
Yes.
Then the final two characters who are third tier, but borderline second tier, if not for... more screen time if they were afforded it. Makari and Druig.
Yes. Probably my two standouts, specifically Makari of this film. So let's talk about... on
a superficial level, best on-screen speed that we've seen?
It's really good. It's so good. And the best decision they made was no slow motion. They let her run. There's a sequence where Phastos, it gets down to the clock starts ticking on Earth because... So a big part that we should probably talk about, the Earth is, the holding, or it's the nest of a celestial egg, and Tiamat is being born. So in the comics, Tiamat, they call him the Dreaming Celestial, and I kind of like that kind of allegory that they use because by the end of the film, Tiamat is essentially, he's turned to stone, but he's quote unquote put to sleep. So he kind of gains the moniker of the Sleeping Celestial, but there's a point where Phastos says, here, I got you. I need to find out where he's being, where the first, emergence is going to happen, where his arm and his head's going to come out of the earth. And she takes off, and it's one of the best sequences in the film. It's kind of short, but it's fine. It's fine that it's short, because it gives you that taste of what she can do with her speed. She uses, she's moving so fast as she stops, and then, the momentum of the air around her can take out an enemy, like a sonic boom almost. So she fights Icarus in the third act, and that fight is one of the best speedster fights I've ever seen. It's amazing.
I agree.
And it's also good that Kingo said, I don't know what I'm supposed to do about Icarus. She's so fierce in that way because she's taking Icarus on just head on. I'm talking mano-y-mano,
Cersei is doing the thing where she's the conduit to stopping the Celestial.
She's the Flash versus Superman that we've seen. That's what it's like. Can speed outthink,
and then
basic
Thena
strength.
Is dealing with the high deviant, which we don't really need to talk about him much.
Yeah. So just really quick, so Crow is one of the deviants. He wasn't sentient, but I guess so. Icarus when Icarus killed Ajak. How he did it is he just he kind of threw her to the wolves, essentially threw her to the deviants. One of the deviants absorbed her power, which I don't know how that works. That's something that, this film is long already, and, you kind of want it to, but I know you made the point, maybe this could have worked. It also couldn't have worked in two parts, but it could have worked in two parts, because one part probably should have been the past with the deviants, and the second part should have been the future with the actual Celestials in the aftermath of that. But yeah, she's fed to the deviants. One absorbs her power, so he can heal himself, but he's still kind of animalistic, and then he absorbs Gilgamesh, and then he actually becomes sentient now. He can talk, he can communicate, and it's Bill Skarsgård.
Yeah.
It's Pennywise.
Yeah.
Cool. Not so cool is that there's really no place for him in the film. There's really not.
Really, his only place in the film was to get Thena away from Icarus.
Yeah, it's
in the final fight.
Yeah, it's that, and then it was a half-hearted attempt to, another kind of theme of the movie of we're just what our makers are. You guys are murderers. As much as you want the Celestials to be murderers, you guys murdered my kind too. That's all it was.
Yeah.
It fell short. I know what they were trying to go for, but that was probably the biggest issue of the film was was the deviance.
Yeah, I agree. But going back to Makari.
I don't have anything but good things to say. I mean, Laura Ridloff absolutely murdered she killed the role. And she's actually deaf in real life, and you want to talk representation? I saw this article earlier today that said sign language, Google searches for sign language, like for beginners, went up by 250%. And like when people try to counter like the representation argument, that's probably the one that I'm going to use for now. Of like, it just took somebody to be deaf on screen that was, kicking butt this whole time and doing these amazing things for people to want to learn sign language and, help progress. Yeah. So thank you, Chloe Zhao, and thank you, Laura Ridloff, for just absolutely knocking this role out of the park and being one of my favorite speedsters. I even told you, because I'm not gonna lie, the Eternals started dropping a little bit. They started dropping like flies at some point in this movie. I got a little nervous that they were gonna kill her, but I'm so glad they kept her alive, because I want her to be an Avenger now. Like, I want her to be the new speedster that they have.
Yeah, can't say enough good things about that character. She's only in that kind of third tier because she's not in the movie that much and doesn't get a whole lot to do other than that super sick action sequence.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. So good. She hits him, like, she's hitting him from multiple directions, uses the sonic boom and just throws him into a rock. I was like, amazing. Yeah. That's how it is. That's how it should be.
And then there's kind of her romantic kind of counterpart, Druig, who's a pretty compelling character from the onset.
I just want to talk about, I always forget how to say his last name. It's Barry Cogan or something like that. That's how you say his name. He is going to be an absolute star in Hollywood. I can feel it. He worked on this movie called Killing of the Sacred Deer. He has this, I don't feel, creepy's not the right word because I don't want to sell him short. It's like this off-putting almost feeling, but it's almost like this familiarity that comes with it. That's why he's so good. It's somebody where you see it's just like, I know that everybody probably can't trust him, but I know what he's probably saying might be right. That's what I think he does really well.
He comes across as pretty untrustworthy.
Yeah, he does. In the beginning of and that just goes back to the comics, because you know who he's kind of like? He's kind of like, from the Inhumans, he's kind of, I always forget his name. He's kind of like, why am I forgetting?
Maximus?
Yeah, he's Maximus from the Inhumans. That's exactly what he is in the comics. He's the other one that's always the most evil. He's always trying to get the Unimind. He's always trying to get these things. In this, like, he's trying to just, one up everybody and be like the deceitful. He's Loki. That's what he is. But I kind of like that they didn't take that approach, because they were already doing it with Icarus. It would have been too easy to already do it with another character. So it's good that they kind of left him to be the one that immediately questioned everything. That's where he immediately from the gate said, I can simply mind control, like, because he even says it, I thought about mind controlling the entire planet at one point, but it's honest, it's kind of wrong. I can't just, so when we pick up with him in the present, he has this kind of commune, and where are they? They're in the Amazon?
Something like that, yeah.
And all these people are being controlled, and he asked the question, like, should I take away their free will and make for a better future? But he says that's going to take away what makes them humans. Their right to choose what's right or wrong.
Yeah, and he witnesses the Spanish conquering the Aztecs, and he's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, why can't we? I could stop this with one thought. Like, Icarus can stop this with one blow to one of their leaders. Like, we could stop this if we wanted to. And he tells Ajax, and Ajax says, hey, this is not what we're here for. And he says, that's kind of BS. Like, we're witnessing these people die, because at that point they don't know what the real goal of the mission is besides Icarus and Ajax. So
right.
Yeah, I really like this character. Like I said, for me, it was the actor that played him himself gave a really great, really good performance. It's another one that I thought they could have killed, but I'm glad they left alive. I'm not going to be surprised if they give him a Loki approach where he uses some of his powers for some more malicious reasoning, but at the end of the day, he's going to be a mostly good person.
Yeah. This felt like less of a plot review as it did like a character review, but I think that's kind of the point. Mm-hmm. This movie is a character study of these characters and these really grand ideas that they're dealing with. So I guess we could just talk about the ending, right?
Yeah, so let's hop into the third act. So right as the film's hitting its like climactic moment, I guess the climactic actual thing that happens in the end of the second act to like hit the third act was Cersei turning one of the deviants into organic matter, because she couldn't do that before. It was always she can transmute inorganic matter, but she can never do it to something that was organic, like a living being. And that kind of turns into the catalyst. So they kind of have ideas. So the first idea, so Tiamat is being born, so they need to stop this immediately or the whole planet's going to get destroyed. So their first idea is to go get Druig to mind control him. Does not work. They go get Phastos, and then they do a big thing from the comics, which is the Unimind, which is essentially they all come together to kind of create Voltron. That's the whole idea. And they kind of link, in the movie it's presented as they link as one and they amplify somebody's power. So the first thought is, let's amplify Druig's power, but also you get that sense of how are they going to keep him? Is Druig just going to have to stay there for the rest of his life? Like, how is this going to work? Or same thing, and then it divulges into Cersei, obviously, is going to be the one to do it because she's the Prime Eternal, because Ajax Sphere that helps her communicate with the Celestials is passed to Cersei, and then that's another argument for Icarus. He said, why was I not chosen as the Prime Eternal?
Because you suck, Icarus.
Yeah, you're a bad guy. Yeah. He's like Wreck-It Ralph kind of bad. He said, you're a bad guy, but are you bad guy?
Yeah.
Not a bad guy.
Yeah.
But he just killed his family because for a space alien. For a big.
So that's really kind of where the third act kicked off, is Icarus, big plot twist alert. Icarus knew the whole time what the whole plan was, and he's on with it. He's ready to sacrifice the Earth in the name of the birth of the Celestial. And everyone else, well, not everyone else, but the crew that we established earlier was like, we're gonna stop you. And Icarus is like, you can try. You will try.
Yeah, you.
Anakin Skywalker
Don't
style.
do that. I'll recite the whole monologue, the whole dialogue right now.
And that's basically what happens. Is Icarus versus the remaining Eternals.
Not a bad third act fight either, because this one actually was, I mean, just adding Makari's abilities. You know who was the standout of that last fight? It was Phastos was surprisingly the standout of this last fight. Do we really divulge into Phastos? I forget if we...
A little bit.
A little bit, yeah. Your first... LGBTQ representation in the MCU. So great job by Brian Tyree Henry to kind of bring that to the table, give some people something to look at and something to, look at a hero. And for me too, it was a cool thing. When Marvel called him for the role, he immediately said, I have to lose weight to play the role. And they were like, no, you don't. I want you to I just want you to be Phastos. That's it. I don't need you to be anything outside of that.
Yeah.
And it's really well done.
No, you're right. He gets a really good moment with Icarus where he has all the reason in the world to be afraid of Icarus.
Yeah, he does.
Because he can't really do anything other than he can make things.
But that's a superpower. He makes some stuff in the third act.
Oh,
fight.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, he does. But what's also great about it, it's not even... It's the representation, but it's also his family. That was the first of them to actually have a family. And it can only be presented in that way because they can't procreate. So it was really beautiful to see that too. It was just great to see his relationship with his son, like, as the things that humans did. I mean, creating the atomic bomb from his ideas. It's like, it's almost as if he produced something, the most horrible thing, and he also produced the most the most beautiful human thing you can do too. It's like the both sides of the spectrum for him. That's where his arc really resonated with me too. Yeah.
So that's basically what happens is Phastos, Thena, and Makari kind of team up against Icarus. Thena gets sidetracked with the Deviant.
Yeah, Cersei is out to, help get to the Celestial because Druig gets presumably killed at this point, and Cersei says, I have to transmute, I have to turn him into something, because paying off her turning a deviant into a tree. She says, maybe if you guys use the Unimind on me, I'm gonna be able to turn him into stone.
Yeah.
So it works.
Yeah. Yep.
And
all's well that ends okay.
Yeah, and before we get into anything else, just the beauty of the scene between her and Icarus thinking about, and he's gonna do it. He's gonna kill her. He's ready to do it, to execute, his directive. He's essentially a Terminator at this point. And it's just this really well done scene of him just thinking about their marriage. The first time he said, you're the most beautiful thing I've seen. It's just all those things, and it just plays into the immortality of them. And it's like the immortality of them, but also the very human and mortality of human emotion that they carry, even though they're androids. That's where it doesn't completely kill me that they're androids. You still feel it's Vision. Vision still feels it, so I do get it from them as well.
Yeah. But yeah, they have a really great moment together, and then she gets all the powers, and boom.
Yeah. Also a really well done moment too with, at the end, after the resolution happens and they all get together, and Cersei says, I felt Tiamat too, and he also joined the Unimind. That's why I was able. And it's almost like Tiamat, maybe the Celestials themselves also have free will. Maybe they aren't all for what Arishem is doing.
About earlier.
Yeah, maybe they're all not for Arishem's plan to, repopulate the universe by means of killing other beings.
Right.
And man, Tiamat sacrificed himself essentially to make sure that humans live. Maybe he saw, we don't know the extent of what the Celestials are, but maybe he saw possible futures of humans, of what we can evolve into. And yeah, that's, like we said before, that's the big idea is, should humans be allowed to live and prosper, or can they be sacrificed?
And then, speaking of sacrifices, Icarus flies into the sun.
Yeah, he does. Did you like that?
I mean, I guess that's the only way that character could have won out, right?
Yeah, because it's the Superman analog. It's, can you leave a villainous character at this point alive? You
and
really
at that
can.
Point, he failed his purpose.
Yeah, he did. Everything that could have went wrong. I mean, it's like it's funny that I joked about the Terminator. He became sentient and he learned to love. And what's my mission beyond if I let emotion affect it? Yeah,
he failed in his mission, and he, I guess, came to realize that his lone reason for being wasn't going to be with him.
Yeah.
Because Cersei was not going to be with him.
No.
So what else is he going to do? He's not going to. He can't go back to Arishem.
Yeah. No, he can't because he failed. Yeah.
He failed his mission.
And that's a pretty big fail, too.
Yeah. And boy, does that come to root at the end of the movie.
I absolutely love that sequence.
So, yeah, let's talk about that.
Real quick. Sprite gets turned into a human.
Yeah.
In probably the best shot of this film. And this is the Chloe Zhao coming to fruition of just, they're on the beach, this pseudo silhouette of the sunset in the background of, it's one of the most perfect frames I've seen from any movie, to be honest. It's amazing.
Yeah, so we get to that. Cersei uses the last bit of her Unimind power to turn Sprite into an actual aging human. Mm-hmm. And then you think all's well that ends okay. Right? The Eternals kind of go their separate ways. Mm-hmm. So what happens? Druig, Makari, and Thena...
Yeah, so Druig, Makari, and Thena go out to the...
Look for other Eternals.
Yeah, what they're going to try to do is tell them the same thing that they were told, that you guys are synthetic beings and you guys need to... Not necessarily need to rebel against, but you guys have the right for your own free will. You guys deserve it.
Yeah, and then Kit Harington's back.
Yeah, so he's back. The boyfriend's back. Yeah. And it's cool. They're having a nice moment. And then...
Well, Kit Harington, right?
Oh, yeah, so this is more... I mean, equally as important.
Well, yeah, so this is I feel like this is a very tropey kind of ending to a movie where it's like a pseudo cliffhanger where Kit Harington's like, wow, so, you're an Eternal. That's cool. I don't really know what that means, but it sounds super important. He's like, but...
Yeah, but...
He's like, I got something that I haven't been totally honest with you about either. And she's like, oh?
Yeah.
Well, what are you going to tell me? And then, boom! Big giant Celestial appears, and he is pissed.
So it's very ominous. It's like they're in London, so obviously the weather's not like LA. So it's kind of overcast, and then some clouds start to appear, and then lightning starts striking, and then the sky becomes completely thunderstorms, and then they just part into space, and then Arishem just arrives on Earth, and that's the definition of how you do scale. Like Dune did it beautifully. I mean, Greg Fraser himself, because he also did Rogue One, did it beautifully, and this is another example of how you do it. And he takes Kingo, Phastos, and Cersei, those are the three left on Earth, and he says because he lives up to
messed up.
Yeah, he lives up to his name because he's Arishem the judge, so he lives up to his name. He says, "You guys did not execute your prime directive."
He's like, I didn't want to be the
I don't want to be that. I don't want to be that guy, but
I don't want to be that bad guy.
Yeah, you guys didn't do what you were supposed to do.
I'm gonna need you guys to see me in my office.
Yeah, and boy, is he going to take them to their office? So yeah, they go with Arishem, and now this is getting into questions of, are we going to see the Living Tribunal? Who's going to actually fight the Celestials? And that goes into my Galactus argument of that's the person that they might need to have to get to try to fight somebody like that. But then we get into the mid-credit scene.
Yeah. So we're like, whoa.
What's your favorite song?
What?
What's one of your... Just name some songs. What's a good song of yours?
Oh, Ain't No Mountain High Enough is one of my favorites.
Great. You know what song I like? I like some Watermelon Sugar. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, man. So the first mid-credit scene picks back up with Druig, Makari, and Thena just floating through space, and they're like...
It's been weeks.
We haven't... Did they say we haven't found anyone? We haven't heard from Cersei and...
Yeah, we haven't heard... I think it was both. I think they just haven't... They've been floating, trying to find a different planet that has Eternals, and also... we haven't heard from them in a little bit. So, and I think Druig even says something might be wrong. Like, why haven't they responded to us in weeks?
Why haven't they responded to our texts?
Yeah.
Are we being ghosted?
Yeah. And no, they're not. Yeah.
And then everyone's like, shh.
Yeah.
You feel that?
Right. Also, another one of Makari's abilities is she can literally feel the vibrations in the air as they're moving, which is a really good addition to just being a normal speedster. And Thena, just being the goddess of war, kind of has that spatial awareness of what's going on.
Off.
Yeah, and then Makari's like, I feel it, like I physically feel it, and Druig says what, and then
a little
flashing lights just starts going off.
You're like, what is happening?
What's going on?
Then a little freaking what are those things called?
Trolls.
Like a troll or like a goblin. Kind of remember Phil from Hercules?
Yes.
One of those guys.
Yeah. So boom.
Like a satyr, I think they're called. Satyr looking mother fluffer.
So boom. Pip the Troll arrives, so deep cut comic character arrives, and played by Patton Oswalt. And shout out Patton Oswalt, because like he's a huge comic fan, so this must be like, I know he was also in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but like this has got to be a people are gonna fall in love with him. They're gonna use him for a bunch of these movies.
This guy does the hear ye, with the trumpet. Bum, 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 bum.
He doesn't have a trumpet. He's just that's an exaggeration.
But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, right.
It's one of those, and he's introducing someone very important.
Mm-hmm. And then
lo and behold,
so boom, he
Harry
says,
Styles.
I'm getting there. You ruined it.
Dang it.
Okay, so he says, lo and behold, he said, defeater of Black Robert. He said he corrects him, Roger, and then he says, heir apparent to the planet Titan, and you're like, huh? Like for like every like the general audience, huh? That's seen some other movies, and then the brother of Thanos, and then you're like, excuse me? And then Harry Styles walks out as Arrow Star Fox. And
you're like, he's not purple.
Well, he's not purple. Wait a second. So just
he's handsome.
Yeah, he's handsome. He's not purple. You don't think Thanos is handsome?
I mean, all right, we're not going to talk about it.
So, little background. So Eros, he's the brother of Thanos. So I believe they're half siblings. That's how it works. Yeah. So Thanos has the deviant gene. This is comics because I don't know how different this is because of the Eternals are synthetic beings. That's like a huge divulsion, but I don't know what it is. I get the feeling that Eros and Thanos are actual beings, because what happens is like they find out how to procreate. And then it almost sees also like Titan has seen some stuff, because Titan's destroyed at this point, and it doesn't in the movies, because in the comics Thanos destroys Titans, but in the movies Titan was destroyed. Could it have been destroyed by another Celestial? Because he told him like, too many mouths, not enough to feed. So if I cut the population in half, 1, I can feed the whole planet, but 2, the Celestial that's sitting in here is not going to be born.
That's a good point.
And then he said, didn't happen, my planet's destroyed. And even Star-Lord says in Infinity War, this, like, the axis is off, like, so much is wrong with this planet. I don't think that, because the way they presented it is, like, if a Celestial is born, the planet is obliterated. Yeah, it's gone. Like, it's Man of Steel, it's Superman, it's Krypton vibes, but, yeah. Eros is... He's the god of, like, I think he's, like, the god of love or whatever it is, and...
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, that's, like, kind of where, like, the real world...
He's Harry Styles.
Yeah, he's Harry Styles, and he's kind of... He's not he's a creep. In the comics, he's put on trial for, like, sexual assault. Like, he's always with women, like, of any planet that he can find. Like, him and Pip kind of just go on, like, a masquerade of, like, the whole galaxy trying to find...
You get a little bit... You get that kind of vibe, that he's kind of like a philanderer.
Yeah, but what I think is good about specifically getting Harry Styles is, like... Now people love that guy. They love him.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So it's good that you have this character that if people go Google him and they find that, to see Harry Styles' face is kind of going to, like, soften the blow of what it is. And they're obviously not going to do that in the movies, I don't think. So in terms of power, he's like Thanos. Like, same kind of concept. Except he can fly. I think he has energy beams.
Fly.
Yeah, they fly now? They fly now. It's like the 4th week of us using that Rise of Skywalker line. Sorry, Oscar Isaac, that you had to be put through that. But yeah, Eros he's an interesting comic book character. I mean, another Avenger. So this is the one thing that I wanted to and also with the second post-credit scene with Dane Whitman, I kind of feel this Avengers team forming, because that was the limbo question of the Disney Plus shows of who are the Avengers going to be, and I think that was also the question asked in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because you have the leader, and you're also probably going to get the Thunderbolts or the Dark Avengers, but who are the real Avengers about to be? Like
the Cosmic Avengers.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, both. It could be because Captain Marvel's still in space. Obviously, she's going to have to come back at some point. We have Sam Wilson.
We know she's around.
Yeah, we know she's around.
Because she was in the Shang-Chi post-credits.
Right. I'm pretty sure they're going to try to keep it as close to the comics of having Cersei and Dane join the Avengers at the same time together. You're also going to have Eros join the Avengers. Like, I can kind of start to feel an Avengers team forming. She-Hulk, we're going to get She-Hulk. Like, we're getting the preliminary of who the new Avengers are going to be. You're going to get Jane Foster, Thor. Like, we're getting a lot of different characters around the universe.
And then there's still the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
And Adam Warlock entering the fold.
Possibly. I mean, we're possibly getting Nova. So, that's also what we didn't talk about in the news portion. They just started filming part 3, and there's a character that James Gunn worked with on Peacemaker. I forget his name, but he was in the promo image with like the main Guardians with Will Poulter. And I was like, and James Gunn tweeted, he said, this is a character that a lot of people in Hollywood wanted to play, and I chose him because he was so good. So, you know what my immediate reaction was?
Nova.
No.
Ooh.
Silver Surfer.
Oh.
Yeah. I just I'm feeling it. I feel the Avengers starting to reform, and we're going to get a new team.
Yeah. But yeah, so Harry Styles shows up and he's like, hello.
Yeah. Hello, I'm handsome.
Hello, I'm handsome. And Makari's like, hello, nurse.
Yeah. He said, who are you? And he has a sphere just like Ajak gave to Cersei. He has that sphere that can communicate with the Celestials, which also goes to the point of, are all Celestials like Arishem, or are there some Celestials that are different? Because I don't think he would just be carrying it around if he would just have to get yelled at every time he talked to a Celestial.
He doesn't seem like the guy who really respects authority.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So he pretty much is like, hey, I'm on your team now.
Yeah,
What's up, guys?
Yeah, I'm here for the sequel.
I'm in.
Yeah, you know what it felt like? Just based on their suits too, he felt like the Sixth Ranger in a Power Rangers TV show. That's exactly how it felt like.
Yeah. So great. Harry Styles is in. Thanos' brother Eros
signed on for multiple films.
Yeah. Cool. Second post-credit scene.
Oh, man.
Boy.
Oh, man.
So, guess what? Kit Harington's back.
Yeah.
Third time.
Yeah, you guys thought Kit Harington wasn't going to get a post-credit scene? And
come on, man. He didn't get 10 minutes of screen time to not get a post-credit scene.
Yeah. So in a backdoor pilot to something?
So he's sitting there.
It's Jon Snow.
Yeah, and boy, this felt very Jon Snow.
Yeah.
Very like assume your destiny.
Yeah, so a little bit more background getting forward. So you got the Black Knight moniker. It's been passed down from generation, all these evilish men through his family. And then the most recent before him was his uncle. So that's why in the film she says you need to make amends with his uncle. And that's where he finds out. So his uncle actually gifts him a castle where the Ebony Blade is. Yeah. So I wonder if that's where he is there.
Probably.
Because if the castle's in London and there's another character that makes his voice appearance in this is also based up. Well, I don't know if they're going to change it because of the Wesley Snipes Blade movies, but in the comics, that's where he is. He's from London.
Yeah.
Oh crap! I spoiled it. Oh no.
So Jon Snow is wringing his hands. He's like, oh.
Yeah, they took my girl.
He's like, I don't know if I want to do this. Yeah, but I kind of have to do this.
Yeah, they took Cersei from me,
and he's giving himself like a nice little pep talk. Like you could do this.
That gave me Dune vibes when he put his hand towards the sword and like those voices started playing in his head.
Like, you could do this. You could do this. And, he's got a box in front of him. What's in the box?
Yeah, what's in the box?
What's in the box?
Don't tell Brad Pitt what's in the box.
Surprise, it's a sword.
Yeah. And the sword is alive.
Oh, boy.
Yeah,
the best kind of sword.
Yeah, he starts putting his hand towards the sword, and it starts becoming alive. It starts speaking. It's like starts reverberating like echoes in his head, and it's just playing into the Black Knight moniker that he's gonna get. But then, as he's about to pick up, I can't believe they did. I really can't believe they did that. As soon as he goes to pick up the sword, there's a voice in the background that says, "Are you sure about that, Mr. Whitman?" And I said, "Listen, I've watched Moonlight a million times." I said, "That's Mahershala Ali right away," because the whole audience was that the Watcher? I was like, listen, I've heard Mahershala Ali's voice a lot. That was Mahershala Ali. And I was like, holy crap, they're gonna team them up. Amazing.
Yeah, so it's Blade's technically first foray.
Yeah, in the MCU.
In the MCU, yeah.
There was no way that they made that big of a deal of getting Mahershala Ali right before the pandemic at the San Diego Comic-Con to not have him show up this immediately to some capacity just to see him.
Spoiler alert, you don't actually see him.
Yeah, you don't see him, but you hear him.
Just hear his voice.
Yeah, and it was a little bit of a limbo for like a day because we didn't know who it was, and then Chloe Zhao came out in an interview and said it's Mahershala Ali. I called him and we got it worked out where he did it, and then Kit Harington also talked about it, like the future of both the characters too. So as rumor support, Blade is supposed to show up in Oscar Isaac's Moon Knight. So I think they're gonna form a version of the Midnight Suns. I think that's kind of what this is leading to. We're gonna get a team up Disney Plus show of Dane Whitman, Blade, and Moon Knight, as well as there's honestly Werewolf by Night is another big one that they're going for as well too. So I can definitely see them formulating like this dark, mystical version of the Avengers too. I think that would be a really good idea.
Yeah. So there you go. You wondered why Kit Harington was in this movie? That post-credit scene is why.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm looking forward to his character. I hope they kind of give him this like Wolverine sense that Hugh Jackman presented us with, especially in like Logan and the Wolverine, of like this like lone wolf type of character that's slowly losing his mind. And I'm just imagining the fight scenes that we're gonna get out of having Kit Harington as the Black Knight. It's gonna be amazing.
Yeah, that guy can swing a sword.
Yeah, he can.
If anyone's ever watched Game of Thrones.
Yeah, he could do it.
Yeah. So yeah. Those two post-credit scenes were definitely they weren't like the Shang-Chi ones. The Shang-Chi ones were kind of like, hey, here's some characters that you recognize and what they're kind of up to, whereas this one was like, this is what we're doing in the future.
Yeah, I mean, the first one in Shang-Chi was that one. I still to this day don't even have an idea. I mean, the only thing I can think of is Fing Fang Foom, but we'll see. Like that, and still it could be they're calling out to something, because it doesn't necessarily. I think it is because of the size of the rings. Like it's Kaluan tech, and Fing Fang Foom is Kaluan, so that's what's gonna happen. Like if you thought the Dweller in Darkness was bad, like Fing Fang Foom is like the baddest of like the aliens that can come down. But yeah, all in all, good movie, man. Enjoyed it. Me just talking about it here like also helped enhance like my enjoyment, and that just goes back into like the actual lore piece of like like I said before, I'm a big fan of like lore and like divulging and exploring these universes too, so I'm really excited for the future of the foundation of the MCU too. And then Dane Whitman and Mahershala Ali as Blade, that was I out of left field.
Yeah, it was tremendous. But all right, Shang-Chi is done, Eternals is done. It's one to go.
Yeah. Yeah. 5 down, 1 to go. We almost got the Infinity Stones of 2021 MCU content.
Yeah. Spider-Man.
Boy, oh boy.
We got Hawkeye coming too.
Yes. Oh, we got, you know what, I'm going to save it. There's a character that got confirmed to be in Hawkeye, which is absolutely massive for the broader MCU.
Yeah.
For the street level too, MCU. Yep. But don't want to spoil that. I want everybody to be surprised by it. But
yeah, so looking forward to that in 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks. Can't wait.
The first 2 episodes we're going to get on day 1.
Good.
So.
Yeah, good.
And then Shang-Chi's on Disney Plus this Friday.
Yes, so. I'm off this Friday. Don't got to do anything. I'm going to watch some Shang-Chi. And also, they're releasing 12 of the movies in IMAX format,
which is cool,
for Disney Plus. So if you got like 4K TVs, like perfect time to go through all the MCU movies and see everything. Like absolutely perfect timing.
But that's gonna do it for us. Gonna do it for Eternals.
Yeah,
can't wait to see what the future lies for this cast.
Yeah, I like the Eternals they left alive, and I kind of just because. So who's alive? It's Makari, Druig, Thena, Cersei. Sprite technically, and Kingo. So 7 of them are still alive.
Yeah.
And I guarantee that number's going to dwindle down to Cersei. I hope if it's going to dwindle down, if I had to save some of them, it would be Cersei and Makari would be the ones that I need to save immediately.
Yeah. So next week, I guess we're going to do Stargirl.
Yeah,
right?
So Stargirl season 2. Darker than I expected.
Yeah.
Way darker than I expected.
Yeah,
but,
man.
I mean, another show that at the core of that show is this heart of this, this Midwest town that's being, succumbed to a dark entity, but the motif of light through Stargirl is really well done. We got some. I think we're probably going to end up doing a retrospective of the Sam Raimi films at some point. Yeah, in the in the Amazing Spider-Man films before Spider-Man No Way Home comes out. It's bound to happen.
For sure. So that's going to do it for us. You can follow us on the socials. First, Twitter handle, Project INF_pod. That is on Twitter. You can like us on Facebook. Follow us on Facebook. Email, projectinfinitepod@gmail.com. You can follow us on Instagram.
At the Project Infinite Pod.
Yes.
I run, so spoiler alert, y'all, I run the social media. I'm gonna be on there more. I apologize for the lack of content, but I'll make sure news and stuff. That's my big thing. I want to make sure everybody that's just with us to be updated with all these movies that are coming out. I want to make sure you guys are all caught up on everything. So I'm gonna make sure that Spider-Man poster comes out. I'm gonna repost it for everybody. I'm gonna make sure we do that.
Yeah.
Also, I watched The Harder They Fall. So amazing movie. Defied every expectation that I had, and the main reason for that is 1, the cast, and 2, the passion that this movie was made with. So another cool future thing, I'm going to review that movie, and it's going to be up not on here, it's going to be up on my personal channel, so look out for that. That's coming. That'll probably be on YouTube, so
yeah, we're working on a YouTube thing.
Yeah, we're working. Like you said, Merry Christmas. We got some stuff that's brewing up for the holiday season.
Yeah. This is only the beginning. I know we're, 15 episodes? 16 episodes? Yeah. It feels like a lot. It feels like, so that's like, 4 months?
4 months, yeah.
But that's kind of small compared to what we're planning on doing. So keep your eyes peeled for some stuff.
Yeah, we got some stuff that's I'm super excited about, and I wouldn't want to do it with anybody else. So.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
I had to. Also, thank you to everybody. I mean, I'm pretty sure we're at 600 downloads, which is, excuse me, really?
Yeah.
People are going out of their way to listen to this. I think the next couple of months are really going to be the takeoff. Genuinely believe it, and I'm ready for this ride with Rob and with all you guys. So,
yeah. What was I doing? I watched the Dexter premiere.
How was it?
Good.
Good.
Good. Yeah.
Did you have to get showtimes or use in the trial?
I found a way.
So for the NSA agents listening, he bought showtimes. That's one of my favorite lines from Daredevil. It's the first episode they talk about bribing a cop, and Foggy's like, "Just kidding, NSA, if you're listening." Yeah. But seriously, I gotta go bribe a cop.
It's definitely a reinvention of a familiar formula, a formula that definitely deviated from the final few seasons. So it seems like it's kind of getting back to its roots. Michael C. Hall is as good as ever. I wish that guy was in more things. Mm-hmm. But he's so great as the titular character in that. So I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of this limited run, which is kind of like a quasi-secondary series finale, since the last season ended very poorly.
You taking Dexter, or you taking the guy from You?
Oh, Dexter's killing that guy.
Yeah, that's been a meme that I've been seeing circulating around Twitter.
Damn kids these days don't know anything about Dexter.
Yeah,
go watch Dexter if you think that Joe from You could take him in a fight.
Yeah,
because no. So yeah, that's gonna do it for us this week. We have Stargirl next week. I'm excited to talk about that, and yeah, the fastest of the podcast.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take it. I'm creative. I can create stuff.
Yeah,
I can build stuff.
Yeah. All right, guys. So Stargirl next week. Eternals is in the books. Spider-Man is on the horizon officially.
Yes. Yeah. And we didn't forget about you, Hawkeye.
No, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Die Hard in the MCU. I'm excited. See you next week, guys. Bye.